You know, I think I'll stand, but then maybe sit when we start talking. But thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I got to say hi to each one of you as you got here, but I really appreciate your being here and helping provide, you know, an audience for me to talk about this. But more importantly, we'd love to just talk about your feedback, your perspective on some of what we're going to talk about. So today we are laying out a plan that we worked on for some time about one of the most important things that the Attorney General needs to be doing, which is protecting Ohio's children. That's obviously, you know, this job has many things it does, but I can't think of anything more important than the need to protect Ohio's children. And there are so many things that this job can do to do that, frankly, far beyond what's on the plan we're laying out today. But we have listed some of the key priorities that we want to focus on as Attorney General, and that's what we'll talk about today. And I'm going to not go on for too long, you'll be glad to know, but would love to just introduce some of the key points that we'll be making, and then from there just open it up to your further input that you might provide. A couple key things though, that we want to talk about. The first is an issue that I know a lot of you have been focused on, and that we've been informed around the state. My neighbor here, we were up in Cleveland, a week and a half ago maybe, talking about the same issue, and that is this very important issue of charter school accountability. We all know, I think, not just in this room, but way beyond this room, that we are seeing huge problems in the operation of charter schools in the state, which is bad enough that it's I believe, wasting millions of taxpayer dollars, but even worse than that, failing so many of our children, and creating, you know, really, in some cases, wasting years of the education life of our children. That's bad enough, and there's not enough accountability. We know that. But what's even worse is the situation we've seen with some of the schools where it's so unregulated, so out of control, so the Wild West, that we're literally seeing children in danger. We're seeing that level of lack of accountability, where we now have the FBI looking into some of the Ohio charter schools, and that have now stumbled into scandals where children are literally in danger. And that's something, especially when it's being funded by Ohio tax dollars, that we should all be alarmed by. And as Attorney General, I'll just be very clear that is at this point reaching a crisis level. And as Attorney General, we will do everything we can to bring some transparency, accountability, and basic common sense back to this badly broken system. I will be very clear. I have no confidence the Attorney General will do that. And he showed us, and I'm here mainly, frankly, to talk about our plans, but I do want to make this important point on this issue. You have in front of you this several stories about, I think, a case study that explains why the Attorney General currently will not be tough on charter schools. This article that just was written coincidentally, someone must have thought, someone's going to assume that we're some really crack campaign, that it ran on the same day as this announcement, but it didn't. We just opened up our newspaper and saw it, the one in the Inquirer. I have very little confidence the Attorney General will do this, because even in the case right now before the Supreme Court of Ohio, where millions are at stake, and the question is whether or not the Brennan School, the White Hat schools, get to keep millions of dollars of public dollars when charter schools shut down. And even though the Attorney General, just a few years ago, his office at least, wrote a brief at the appellate level saying that what David Brennan was asking for and what White Hat was asking for, that when money goes into these charter schools and they operate these charter schools, that their contract says we get to keep all those assets. They become private even though they were given to those charter schools because those are public charter schools. Mike DeWine, or at least the Attorney General's office 2 years ago, argued that contract was illegal, that it violated the public interest of Ohio, that it put at risk millions of dollars of Ohio tax dollars. About a month ago, when that case hit the Supreme Court of Ohio, and you all know, lawyers or not, when it gets to the Supreme Court, that's when it really matters, right? Mike DeWine didn't file a brief at all, even though his own office had said just a few years ago that these contracts were illegal, violated the public interest, and risked millions of dollars. When it hit the Supreme Court, the Ohio Attorney General abandoned the case, abandoned the taxpayers, abandoned Ohio school children, And this article makes clear this is after thousands of dollars of contributions from people running these schools. So I have very little confidence that Mike DeWine, in the case so clear, if he's not willing to go to the Supreme Court and file the same brief that he filed at the appellate level when nothing had changed, I have no confidence that he's willing to take on charter schools in any of the ways that they need to be taken on so that they are accountable, they are transparent, and in the end, they're also, bottom line, a safe place for our children to go. So I will take that issue on with, as you saw last week, with fervor, with intensity. This is as serious as it gets, and I'll be very clear. There is nothing more important that any government does, that Ohio or any other state, than educate our children. Nothing more important that we do. And the idea that we have put this system up to the highest bidder, and that we have such lack of accountability, and it's so bad that even our Attorney General will not go to court to fight to make sure that our children are going into systems that are accountable and transparent. And he also won't go to court to fight for tens of millions of tax dollars that are at stake in this battle. Tells me just how broken this system is, that we've given it away to the highest bidder, and even the Attorney General won't stand up to that. So the first part of our plan is to make sure that we have much more accountability in our charter schools than we have today. The second part is relative to schools. We've seen, you'll see on this chart, under Cordray, just a few years ago, they were grant funding for 380 DARE and SRO officers from the AG's office to provide officers in schools. Officers that provide both safety as well as prevention. We all know what a terrible crisis we have in the state around substance abuse. I will tell you, last night I had an event and I spent an hour with 3 young people who are trying to recover from their heroin addiction. I wish everyone could have seen the conversation. The alarm bell should be going off in all 88 counties about what is currently happening with our young people. And the discussion I had with these young people about the horrible pain of withdrawal as they try and get better and what they go through and the different symptoms of trying to get out from under addiction to heroin. I mean, it's clear to me, and I've laid out a whole plan around heroin, and we need to do a lot of treatment because a lot of young people, not young people, but a lot of young people are addicted and they need help, and it's years to recovery. But every single young person we can convince to not make that first bad decision, that's what we're really going to solve. And that's what we need. And with the gutting of school budgets, we have less folks in our schools helping young people not make that bad decision. Guidance counselors are often the first to go, right? We're losing guidance counselors. We're losing the others, and we've also lost a lot of the officers that have been in schools all over the state that also provide that kind of prevention and also provide a layer of security for teachers and students. And you'll see that even though we're talking about it as if there's a crisis in the state, you'll see in the last 3 years the grant funding of this from the AG's office has gone down considerably. It's close to 200. It used to be at 380 when Cordray was Attorney General. So I will get in there and work very hard with the internal budget of the AG's office, with the legislature, and with anyone else in the department, with local law enforcement, to make sure we're actually increasing and enhancing the number of officers who are in schools to help keep them safe, but also help do the prevention piece that's so important. And there's a story the other day, I think in Hannah News Service, where both sheriffs and the FOP leadership were saying what a loss it is that we have fewer officers in schools than we used to have. So that's a big part.